The one thing that is really apparent now is that we are all fucked up.
It's lights.
And so Gen V, we heard about this a couple of years ago, I believe it was, in terms of a spinoff of The Boys. We knew that they were going to expand The Boys universe on Prime Video, obviously just due to the success of that series. And so after season 2, I believe it was the first sort of rumblings that they were going to develop a spinoff series that was going to primarily focus on college age students who were also soups that were attending this soup college in order to hone their powers and to become crime fighters of the world, really connecting that through line between people who have suit powers when they're young to when they naturally become a little bit older. What's the trajectory of that look like? So a very interesting premise. And so they got it into development, and this is coming out in between season 3 of The Boys and season 4 of The Boys, which presumably will drop on Prime Video next year. And I think that this creates a perfect bridge between, these two seasons that we're experiencing right now, but it's also establishing an entirely new world, entirely new characters, and entirely new stories that are separate and removed a lot from those characters that we've come to associate with The Boys. And so we're going to dive into specific characters, some of the big moments and storylines from season 8, but just generally, man, I want to start off with your overall thoughts. What did you think about Gen V and just everything that was presented this season?
Man, you said something about the boys, in general being, as satirical as it is, or as a group of imagined superheroes that have these powers that probably aren't, a lot of them aren't going to be the best people in the world that have these powers and what they decide to do with that. Gen V is genius because there's also a moment where you're like, these people had to grow up at some point, or these people had to be somewhere before. Again, in The Boys, it's all about the 7. It's all about what the 7 has going on. They're grown people. No, what about the college students? a lot of these people got this V put into their blood as babies, right? And here we are. They have to grow up somewhere. They have to go someplace. What does their life look like now in college? And so what I really like about Gen V, it's really like a rated R version of Sky High, if Sky High was a thing. And I get that feeling of it. And it really feels, again, it really gets down to the nitty gritty. And it really feels like a college drama with superpowers, because everyone in college isn't your best friend either. Everyone in college isn't the best person. Anybody who's went to college has run into people in college they fucking suck. They're not the greatest people. Some of those people went on to be the 7. Some of them are right here in college in real time. And to me, that's what Gen V is about. It's about this snapshot of a different generation of heroes where everyone still isn't perfect. And so I really love that concept. I really love that idea coming into the TV show, man. I think there's a lot there because, of course, The Boys has its own social commentary and satirical nature, but there's a lot of things that in college and in that time in your 20s that The Boys doesn't really get to talk about, that college experience that The Boys doesn't really get to talk about. And Gen V is really hitting on all those points. And I think they're doing a damn good job at it.
Yeah, one of the best attributes of this universe that Eric Kripke and his entire crew have done with The Boys on Prime Video is world building. They have built out a tremendous world to really get you to buy into just everything that they're selling, from Vought and just how they are a dominating force of power in this universe, to the 7 and that organization, to the boys themselves being the rebellious group that try to take down the 7, and just all of the disparate factions in between, the political, the journalists. It's really affecting all aspects of society, as it would, because Vought is one of the biggest corporations in the world in this particular universe. And so to take that conceit and say, like, well, okay, let's take that, but then also show how Vought as a company and this age of soups that we live in will influence that next generation, influence those people that are teens and are of college age and now maturing into grown people. And now what is their role in society going to be? And that's what the show is all about. And it's an amazing concept, and it's brilliant, really, to bring this to life. And I think what makes it even more special is the fact that, and we can all relate to this, even though we can't relate to having superpowers and dealing with things of this nature, we can relate to the idea of trying to find your identity in college and trying to figure out who you are and just trying to forge that path forward for what you're going to do in life. And when you get to college, 18, 19 years old, you're still trying to figure that out. Most people don't really have a clue of like, well, what am I going to do when I grow up? Like when I grow up in like 4 years, I have to go out and get a real job and work on a day-to-day basis. You're trying to figure out so much about yourself because you've now been sheltered for 17, 18 years of your life. You get to be on your own and you get to just have extraordinary amounts of responsibility and do whatever you want. They often told me in college, like before you get there, whether you're in high school or you're meeting guidance counselors, like, oh, well, you know, college is great, but your time is what you make it. You can decide whatever you want to do. You can go to class or you can not go to class. You can skip, you can do whatever. And that is absolutely true. Like you spend the time how you want to, and that will determine your fate essentially. Because if you don't go to class, if you skip, you know, all semester, then you know there's going to be repercussions, and I've been there. And so now take that and then compound it with the fact that they got powers and that they can really do whatever the fuck they want. They can kill, they can murder, they can rob, they can mind control. Now that just becomes a whole new level of responsibility for people at that age is just like probably too much. And they haven't been nurtured and raised the same way to really understand how to cope and deal with their powers unless they come from a lineage of people of superpowered beings, which, you know, very few of them do. And so it's unpacking and dealing with a lot of stuff. And I think every individual character that they introduced here, because they are in college, we get to see all sides of that. We get to see all of the repercussions and the examinations of how people are affected by those choices in that course of action. The fact that none of them really had a choice in the matter of any of this. And now they're having to just grapple and deal with it on a day-to-day basis. And they also have these powerful influences around them that just can't be trusted. As we know in this universe, nobody can truly be trusted because there's always something bubbling underneath the surface. Beyond that, the connections that it makes to the larger boys universe and the connections that it makes to the upcoming season and previous seasons, A+, they did an amazing job of making you really believe that this is all happening simultaneously with the other events. And I kind of see this more, if I'm being honest, I kind of see this more as like the fourth season of The Boys, or at least like the prologue to the fourth season of The Boys, because of how well they connected it to everything else. Like this doesn't feel so totally separate. It feels like a little bit of a tangent, but everything is absolutely going to coalesce till then to that next season and have a long lasting effect. I would suppose. So I really enjoyed it. I loved all 8 episodes. I had a great time. There wasn't a single week that I was out on it. It was definitely a treat to watch. But folks, we're going to get into some spoilers right now. So if you've not seen Gen V on Prime Video, I would encourage you to go watch the show. Highly recommend it. And come back and listen out to the rest of our conversation. Because we're reviewing really the entire season, we're kind of going to be bouncing all over the place, just to be honest. We're going to talk about the characters. We're going to talk about moments. And we're definitely going to talk about the last 2 episodes because those were extremely pivotal and how it relates to the future of this universe in particular. But before we talk about characters and their powers and just how they, sort of connect to the overall story, I want to get your sense of, how you feel about this world, this new corner that they've created in Gen V. The fact that the large majority of it, by the very nature of what the show is, takes place on a college campus at Godolphin University. That's really sort of the central premise of where most of our characters are living. It is a traditional college campus in the sense that you go, you have a dorm room, you have roommates, you eat at the dining halls. Like your life is based on your experience at that campus, and you go to class. And so we're primarily here. We go to a few other places occasionally, but it's mostly at Godolphin University. How did you feel about the execution of how they brought this to life, this college campus, this college environment, the culture of what it's like to be there, all the different stuff that they introduced, like the ranking system and how that impacts students, the classes, the different schools? Just what were your overall thoughts about this being sort of a new setting and a new environment that we got to explore?
Again, I think they're answering a very simple question here when they're making the world of Godolphin. Is college, but what if they had superpowers? And it's so simple, but it's so effective in the way that they choose to show a lot of the things happening on campus, right? If you're having, I don't know, a party somewhere, people are probably going to be doing some crazy stuff in these parties, especially given what we've seen in The Boys and Hero-gasms and things like that. Imagine college and what college looks like. You think Hero-gasm is crazy. College, they're probably doing that every other weekend. You know what I'm saying? It's probably happening more often. And so it's really cool I think to just see some of those moments. I actually really also love the hero ranking system, because that's real, right? A lot of these people are looking to eventually be in the 7. A lot of people here who again are reaching for the star want to be in that specific group. So there needs to be a ranking system. There needs to be something for these heroes to shoot for. And again, that's stuff that does feel kind of like other things we've seen before, like The Incredibles. It does feel like, again, like a Sky High, where everyone is like, oh, I need to be that number one hero. I love that. That feels good to me, because when you're setting up a world, I need to know who's where, who gets placed where. I can't just be meeting people, you know what I'm saying? If you're at a superhero school, the most popular person in the school is probably the number one hero in the school. It takes a little bit of My Hero Academia of it too, right? There's a little bit of anime in there, I think, that they're taking. And they're like, look, this is another commentary on what the superhero world can look like, and the ins and outs of it, though, and the realistic nature. Because literally, we walk into the school, day one, they have a battle, and oh boy, it looks like somebody just died. I was like, all right, did he just explode this dude? Like, it's crazy to see that on a campus, but because it's a superhero campus, it all makes sense, and it all comes together of what's acceptable and what's not. And I think that's really interesting for us, the audience, right, to buy into. Is like, wait, what's going on? What's happening? But the rules are bent. It's not just college. They're not just exploding people. It's like a guy that can heal themselves, or somebody can heal for him, or somebody that's like, oh yeah, I guess that does make sense. So I love how they both set up expectations and then subvert them in weird ways that have to do with superheroes throughout the entire setup of the campus. Not only that, but I also like how everyone has a place, right? It does feel high school in that way, where it's like, oh, there are some jocks over here, some people who really care about social media over here, which there is a lot of that in this TV show. It's called Gen V for a reason, right? It's not too far off from Gen Z, where there's a lot of talk in this TV show about what media does, right? What is about the media. And so I love that. Again, we see that in The Boys all the time. That's what Vault is, a big ass fucking media company. Really want to talk about it. And then they bog it down to the Gen V side of things, to the college campus. There are girls on that campus who are not for you. They just want to get the next like on TikTok. They just want to get the next one up on Instagram. And that's very accurate, again, to a lot of the experience I think a lot of us have had in college. You run into people like that who do just want to do something for the likes, who does just want to be the most popular based off what's happening. And so, yeah, I just really like the world that they built and set up, because it feels like it's touching so many different avenues and different things. It's not just talking about superhero culture. It's not just talking about college culture. It's not just talking about, again, what is happening in the world of this superhero universe over here. It's really talking about all of it in one spot. So yeah, I think they're doing a good job of like bringing all of these things together and setting up Godolkin again as this place that seems somewhat like it's supposed to be like a paradise for, teenagers, and again, people in their early 20s going through life with superheroes. But man, it's so much more than that, and the darkness also comes with it.
To speak to the rankings as well, like schools rank people, like real schools rank the kids in the schools. Like that actually happens. I've been ranked, I've been, placed as a number, and that happens. That happens on the college level too. People might not know that all the time, but at certain universities, you will get ranked or placed within a certain system. And so that's information that isn't always readily available, because it's like kind of fucked up when you think about it, but it's a reality. And so for them to translate that here, it's like, yeah, it's cool from the idea of being a soup and like who's the most popular, who has the most followers, because that would 1000% be true, because that's what they place value in, especially Vought as an entity. But beyond that, it also just speaks to that social construct of the fact that everybody isn't on the same playing field. Even if you have these really special abilities, even if you come from a prestigious background or whatever the case may be, like everybody has the differences that they bring to the table that will either be an advantage or a disadvantage to how they are able to navigate and matriculate through that specific environment. And that's a really, really key sort of piece of the puzzle that I think that they're painting a picture here with. And that's one of the things that like stood out to me early on. And I love that. And I just love that all of that other stuff you talked about, just the environment of college, that really unpredictable nature behind it, the fact that you can do whatever you want, you can formulate friend groups and cliques with whoever you want. You really are going to gravitate towards probably people that are going to be close to you for the rest of your life. And a lot of that starts in college for a lot of people. And it's just so interesting to see how they're able to navigate that space, and to see like that there are those social groups that, it's not the 80s. We're not necessarily going to paint them out in as much of a cheesy way as we used to, but you can see it. You can see it, as you say, the people
Yeah.
that are more focused on the rankings, or the people that are more academically inclined, or the people that are primarily focused on social media, or just those people who just like to fuck others over. They just like to do terrible shit because they're using it to leverage their own personal identity, their own personal brand. And I think Vought really is this overarching, really the primary villain of all this shit, more so than just like an individual, like a Homelander. Like Vought as an entity is once again showing its exploitative nature of these people, because we know now, just based off of the events of the season, that there is a underbelly to this whole experiment, this whole Godolkin University, that's really, really sinister. It's not there to just like create an educational system for soups. It's there to really exploit them and eventually kill them off, and present them as kind of prey, to this ultimate thing that they're crafting here. But I think Vought as a company, man, they really just kind of exploit these people, and you get to see that twofold. They're grooming them at a very early age to adapt to this lifestyle, to become celebrities, to engage in endorsements, to sign deals, and all the shit that we see, all the commercials, the silly shit that A-Train did in season 3. Like, that starts here. We see like A-Train was a product of this system and of this environment.
Exactly.
That's probably why he's as fucked up mentally as he is, because what type of real social growth can you have when you have a corporation that is like priming you and grooming you to just be a product, and to be a system, or be a part of a system that's just meant to sell things and make money? I think that that's like something that's really telling here, that you start to see that super early with the different kids and the different soups that have these abilities here. And so it's a great framework, I think, to just the larger sort of implications that corporation has within this entire universe that they've set up. But let's dive into some of these characters and talk about, big beats, big moments that happen with them throughout the season. Of course, we got to start with Marie, who is the primary character of the season. Her ability is that she can physically manipulate blood, which, I got to be honest, when I first saw the power, I'm like, that's kind of gross. But we see over the course of the season that it gets very, very effective, on a good front, and also on a very negative front, because she's had, I mean, perhaps one of the most tragic, experiences of her life, because of her abilities. When she finds out her abilities, when she comes of age and she has her first period, it really startles her, it frightens her. And because of that, she accidentally kills both of her parents. And due to a result of that, her sister, who is not a soup, I don't believe at this point, really resents her for it. She blames her for the death of her parents, but that set her on this path to, grow up in a foster system, and not really have a system of a family to really support her, eventually leading her down this path to attend Godolkin University. And within the first few episodes, we see she starts to really make a name for herself. She quickly rises up in the rankings. I think she shoots up to number 6 at a certain point in time, just due to different events that happen. So just as like a, sort of a scene setter here, what do you think about Marie as a character, her abilities, where she comes from, that tragic backstory, and how that ultimately sort of manifested to her position as kind of being this leader of this new generation of students attending Godolkin?
Man, first of all, shout out to Jazz Sinclair. I think she's absolutely killing it as Marie Moreau here, man. I think she's embodying this character. She's giving me she's giving what needs to give, I think, in this role, man. But man, what a cool, crazy, I think scary character, because one of her biggest things is, again, the death of her parents. It's like her whole thing that she caused on accident, and it's like she has blood manipulation techniques, but the one thing she doesn't have around is blood. If that makes sense, like, is her family around her. So it's already like folding onto itself in the way in which she operates. But instantly I knew she had to be one of the most powerful soups there was. Blood manipulation is crazy. Any person, anything that has blood, she can potentially do something with that. And I think, of course, she didn't know how to control it, but I knew that eventually there would be some kind of development there to figure out her abilities and her powers, man. Because again, even though it was gross at first, I was like, man, but she's kind of cold. Like, this is kind of a beast. It kind of reminded me of Katara from Avatar when she learned how to blood bend. I was like, oh yeah, no, this girl's gonna be a problem in the future. And lo and behold, she's slowly coming into that, man. But I really enjoy her character, not only because she's tragic, but because she is powerful. And they do speak on the nature. Again, one of the reasons I love these shows, they know, they're not afraid to say shit. In constantly in the show, she's like, no, I'm a black woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's things I can't do that you guys can do. I'm looked at different. Not only am I a black woman, I'm an orphan. Not only that, there's so much there to speak on and talk about, and they never shy away from it with her character, man. And also like how they do take the time to get her to get accustomed to the people around her too. I could very much see this a show where there's like small disconnects in every character, but I can go down the list of all these characters and tell you exactly what her relationship is with all of these characters that are surrounding her. And so I appreciate that too, man, that they take the time out to actually embed her within the world in this system. But yeah, I really like her character. Again, she's really tragic, and I think that makes her cool. Not only that, but we have a black woman lead in a superhero show. Hello, is anybody else watching this? Like, come on, God! Like, I need us to rally behind this, but it's deeper than that, and it's really nuanced, I think, in that way. By the way they have her set up, man, and she has her own wants to want to see her little sister. I think that's all of her drives and everything she's searching for just makes sense in the writing of what they have going on in the show. So yeah, I think she's doing a great job as an actress, but I think they've also written her very well.
Yeah, I think a really, really phenomenal showcase for Jazz St. Clair in this whole first season. I mean, just the chops on her. She clearly has what it takes to be a true leading actor and to carry, really a lot of the story on her shoulders, and just all of the story beats that they hit here from the opening, which again, this universe is known for its really shocking openings to just pull you in immediately, man. I still think about A-Train running through Huey's girlfriend in season 1 of The Boys, like that gets you to buy in automatically because you see something like that and it's so shocking. It's like, yo, what just happened? And what's the fallout going to be? They did something very similar here in the death of her parents, where it's like, wow, that is the most tragic thing that I've seen. And it's going to irrevocably alter the course of her entire life, really, and set her on this path that she didn't necessarily plan for. And then just from there on, once you see her in this environment at Godolkin, and you can see how much energy is starting to gravitate towards her because people are finding out about her story. And then, that first episode, she's able to save that person's life. She's able to stop the blood from bleeding out of their neck and save their life. And that just shines a whole new light on her. And we see that there's that whole interaction with Brink and her, who she thinks she's going to be rewarded and acknowledged for that, for doing something like that. But instead, he's trying to cover up, the other shit with Luke and all the other people who were involved because they were in a situation that they shouldn't have been in. And so it's like, now, her as a black woman has to take the fall for that, for a power that is more, essentially more powerful than most people and what they're capable of, and her trying to do the right thing. But again, she's within a system that is not designed to benefit her. It's only designed to prop her up when they need her, but then they will discard of her when it doesn't benefit them and they need to actually uphold the other people that are a little bit more popular, that they've designated as their golden boys. Because we see that Luke is like that character who was being groomed to be the next Homelander. That's his whole deal. Like, you can be a part of the Seven. You can lead the Seven. Like, you have more abilities and more potential than Homelander ever had. And so that's also just like that scary prospect of her relationship to this university that isn't there for her, that never will be there for her. And so that stuff plays out in really tremendous fashion, and I think in really meaningful ways all throughout the season. She also had quite a few other shocking moments. I mean, that moment where she blows that guy's dick off just like out of nowhere is one of the wildest things that I think that they've ever done. Like that kind of took the cake for me. Like, oh shit, we're not holding back anything anymore. Like, you thought that the termite shit in Boys season 3 was something. Well, just watch this girl just explode this man's penis. And so what you were saying, that's crazy power. I don't want to come across fucking her over in any capacity, because she could literally just like blow anything off of me in any given moment. It's quite the crazy sight. We're going to talk about more, with Marie. Sure. She's obviously a big component to this. Let's talk about Andre as a character. So his specific ability is magnetic manipulation. So if you're a fan of X-Men, Magneto, that is a thing. We see very similar powers here. Andre is super popular at Godolkin. He is sort of a legacy soup. His father, Polarity, attended Godolkin and has a big prominent role amongst political, sort of machinations in the media and also Godolkin as a whole. And so he's sort of living up and following in his father's footsteps. while still trying to maintain and establish his own identity and also being pretty powerful himself. But he's also caught in between a lot of different things. Luke and him were extremely close friends. And one of the really shocking events of the first episode is seeing Luke just go fucking crazy. He tries to kill Marie and then he commits suicide. And so that obviously affects Andre and just everything that he goes on in terms of a journey with this season. And then he actually, forges a relationship with Kate, who Kate also used to have a relationship with Luke. So he's caught in between a lot of stuff. The relationship with his father, Marie now being this new person, him being super popular, his best friend just killed himself. He has a lot going on here. So what did you think about, sort of his story, some of the things that he dealt with in season one, obviously his powers and abilities and just how those ultimately manifested and sort of altered some of the events throughout the story?
Man, realization they make was it episode 5, maybe I think it was that everybody here is fucked up. And man, he is no exception to that at all, man. And I think, Andre, there's just so much on his shoulders and everything around him is definitely crumbling. Like I actually don't even know how he's still functioning, especially after his dad started getting sick. You know what I'm saying? I was like, dude, how are you moving in the world? Your best friend blew up himself. Your girlfriend is on whatever, the terror of the world. And now your dad is low-key dying in slow motion. Like, I don't know how you are staying afloat, man, but he's going through a lot. I really like his character because how complicated he's forced to be because of all the things going on around him, man. But I also like his own, I think, coral of righteousness where he's like, bro, fuck what's going on. His dad is trying to get him to be Golden Boy. He's like, I'm not really feeling that. You know what I'm saying? He's like, I don't want to be kind of this kid that just sits back and doesn't do anything. I want to be of someone of substance. And so his character is really respectable because there's a lot of things about him that feel, I don't know, redeemable. The worst thing about him, to be honest, that I've seen so far is that he definitely cheated on Luke with his girlfriend, whatever that's about. But I know it's gonna sound really bad, like benefit of the doubt. But other than that, you know what I'm saying, there are worse things. Other than that, he seems like somebody who was trying his best regardless of his popularity. And so there's a lot of things about him. I'm like, I respect that, or I respect that decision, and a lot of things going on. But man, shout out to Chance Perdomo here too, who's again, man, I think they got some performances in this TV show, man, because everything they're doing is so believable. Every time he cries, I'm like, yeah, yes, I believe that. Every character moment he goes through where it's a one-on-one between maybe him and Kate, I'm like, yeah, I believe that. And so, man, I think they're doing a good job. But Andre as a character, man, again, he's the character that has lived, probably he feels the most lived in this world, if that makes sense. Before it probably was like Golden Boy, but it's probably between him and Jordan that feel the most lived in this like Godolkin University kind of what you want your life to be as somebody in his situation, and everything around him is falling apart. So I think they're doing a really good job with his character as well, because I couldn't imagine being in the shoes of what he's going through right now.
Yeah, Andre, I mean, everything that he's believed in for his entire life is crumbling before his very eyes. He sees his best friend commit suicide. His father is also dealing with a lot of health issues while still trying to be, a parent for him. He's gained these new allies, and he's discovering that this university has some really treacherous shit that it's doing with the woods, because he's one of the first people to discover the woods and just like what's happening there, the fact that they're experimenting and keeping Soups, caged up and imprisoned. And so everything that he thought he knew and believed in is just turning out to not be true. And I think that's a really strong sort of characteristic of who he is. The fact that he is so powerful, he believed in what this was. He was very popular. He obviously leveraged it, but he wasn't necessarily a bad guy. He just found himself in some really bad, tragic circumstances. And now he's reeling from all of that. He's trying to deal and cope with the fact that his best friend had just committed suicide, but he did do some really fucked up shit in having an affair with Kate, behind Luke's back. And that is the one thing I think to bring down about him. But he is just really trying to forge his own identity and find his way, while also just grappling with all of this information that just doesn't make sense. It's like, well, what the fuck is this wood stuff? Like, what's going on here? This place that's supposed to be here for us, they're actually not. And now he's also just, grappling with just all of that stuff kind of closing in before his very eyes. And so I think that that Andre as a character is a really interesting one. And I love the powers. Like we don't see him use the powers that much to a degree, because that is one of those. I mean, we see it with Magneto all the time. Like incredibly powerful character. Like you could do a lot of stuff. There's a lot that you can achieve by magnetic manipulation. Like damn near anything can be manipulated and transformed at that particular point. And he's probably also still at the age where he's still discovering how powerful he is. Like we see some of the extent of it, like in the finale, or I think the actually the penultimate episode 7, when he's trying to rescue his father, the way he's able to prevent the ambulance from crashing. He's able to like use all that power to keep it on track to get them to the hospital. Like that stuff is like, wow, this guy could be really, really either dangerous or, beneficial to whoever, side he falls on.
Definitely killed a person.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And it was so, I actually forgot about that till just now. That was so tragic. He was like, look at this trick. And then, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
If that's not a party trick gone wrong, I don't know what is. So yeah, I actually forgot about that whole part where he accidentally killed a person.
Marie had to save his ass because he was literally about to be responsible for that girl dying and her bleeding out until Marie stepped in. And because he is like one of the chosen ones at Godolkin, he was going to get shielded and protected by Brink, and Marie was going to get sent out to pasture for those actions, even though she wasn't responsible. So yeah, it speaks to just that whole dynamic too. Like they're both black, but he's like a black man, she's a black woman, so he falls higher on the pecking order. Yeah, it's still a hierarchy to this whole thing. So I think that whole sort of conversation and just his role and how he tries to find his place, be helpful, but doesn't always have the right tools to get down that path. It's really good stuff for his character. That brings us to Kate, who also has really, really integral role. Obviously, she has a big connection to Andre. They forge a relationship after the death of Luke, but she's basically a telepath, and she can also mind control, which a lot of her powers, and I mean, by and large, we talked about this a while ago in just a off podcast conversation, but a lot of these powers do resemble what we see out of mutants, So I think when we talk about some of these comparisons, like a Magneto or a Jean Grey, who I would really associate with Kate, like Jean Grey / Rogue, like it's a lot of that, a lot of those mix of combinations, because if she touches somebody, she's able to command their will and do whatever she make them do whatever she wants them to do. And so again, super powerful person, really capable of a lot here. I think her role in this first season really is also a person who's reeling from the death of Luke, and she also becomes kind of a primary investigator behind like what's this mystery with Godolkin? What are they doing? What's the woods? What's going on here? She's one of the key people that helps discover Sam, and now because of what she's discovered and the information that she finds out, she's launching pretty much a rebellion against Godolkin. She is absolutely not here for the shits, and she's been subduing herself and her power for so long because Dean Shetty has medicated her, and that's actually held her back physically. And now she wants to really break out and launch, sort of this full scale attack against Godolkin and non-superpower beings. And so we see kind of her break bad, I think, about midway through the season and become like really a prominent force in that way, because it becomes sort of a civil war situation amongst all these kids. So what did you think about Kate's journey? Some of the big moments that she went through, her power set and her abilities, and how it ultimately sort of manifested into to the events of the finale.
Man, I just remembered Kayla Silverfox from X-Men Origins is who she reminds me of. Remember, she grabs a boy's foot. She grabs Stryker's foot and goes, walk and keep walking until your feet bleed.
I forgot about that.
And then keep walking. I'm like, yep, that's Kate. That's exactly who Kate is. And so, man, this girl here, again, she's so interesting because I think a lot of times in X-Men, like we've always seen like where powers could like hurt you if you go too far, right? Like, or if something was to happen, you're pushing yourself too hard, what could happen? But Kate really feels like, really Gen V in general, now given what's going on with Andre's dad too, of him messing up his health, Kate is really like scary in that way where like when she pushes too hard, her eyes start to bleed. That's like the scariest thing to me, in very visual of like in some ways like self-sabotage a little bit. Like if I can use a lot of power, but I will lose pieces of myself every time that I do this thing. And so man, I think she's another just very interesting character of all that she has going on, because there's so much up and down with her throughout the show. There's part of you that's like, she's just the the big guy in the school, Golden Boy's girlfriend. At first, that's what you think, right? You're like, there's not much to her. Then he dies. She becomes like a whole main character. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, she is more than that. And they give her more than that. In fact, being able to push people the way she does, being able to touch somebody and literally tell them to do anything and they will do it, is some of the craziest moments and things that we see throughout the TV show. Last episode, she's like, sit there and eat your hands. And boy starts eating his hand. And what's so crazy is he yells. He's like yelling
as he's crunching his fucking fingers.
His fingers off, bro. It's so crazy. But what makes her also really scary is the ability. It's not just the physical, it's the emotional that makes her scary, right? Like we don't see a lot of that stuff all the time. Even the Kayla Silverfox thing I'm talking about was all the physical, was all do this, do that. But to have the ability to take away somebody's emotion, ooh, there's some dark stuff there. In fact, some of that stuff is in like Harry Potter, Hogwarts Legacy, low key. But it's like being able to take away like some emotion and stuff there makes her a completely different, scary character, because it how much of when she pushes somebody is her projecting on somebody else? How much of it is her doing the bidding of Shetty, who was another important character we'll talk about, you know what I mean? But there's just so much fucked up with her that it makes you never know if you're supposed to root for her or be against her until really close to the end, right? Where she's going off the rails, starting to kill Shetty, starting the Civil War. But before that, there are moments where you do feel for her. Her boyfriend also just exploded. There is a lot going on with her, and so it's just a lot, man. And I think her powers are scary, and I think out of everybody beyond Marie for sure, but to me she had like the scariest power out of all of our main characters, because she could literally tell almost anybody to do anything. That's some scary shit. And again, it's not just the physical, it's the emotional, and I think that makes a different layer to what her character can bring to the table.
Yeah, and they did a good job of holding that power back for a good amount of the season without really exploiting it too much until the finale to showcase just like how dangerous she could absolutely be with the gloves off, touching anybody that she wants to, and just kind of allowing herself to unleash and let loose, because she feels like the drugs have held her back and now she's off the drugs. Shetty's gone, and you can just see the true horrific nature of what she's capable of. And I think her whole journey, it's a really interesting one. She was one of those characters like you don't know how to feel about her, because she is kind of dealing with things on an emotional level. She's trying to find a place of comfort in her relationship with Andre, but you also know she's had a troubled background and she still has this relationship with Shetty, and she discovers things like her whole dynamic and her whole existence is now being questioned as well. So we can kind of see her grappling with this information and trying to figure out her place. And then ultimately she picks a side, and her side is like, fuck this shit. We're about to burn this bitch down. If you're not super powered, you're going to get put out to pasture, and we're going to kill you too. Like it doesn't matter. And that's really a terrifying place to be with somebody who's able to do what she can do and what she's capable of. And so I thought she had a great arc as well. Let's move on to Jordan. Great name, by the way. Jordan Lee. The ability here, man, wow, they went places with this one. They are a gender shifter. Jordan is played by two characters, both London Thor, who plays the masculine form, and then Derek Luh, who plays Derek Luh plays the masculine form, and London Thor plays the feminine form. And so Jordan Lee can gender shift, but also there's other abilities specific to the gender. The feminine form can fire some energy blasts. The masculine form has superhuman durability. And so we got to see this utilized quite a lot throughout this season, where Jordan is able to gender shift and to really masculate whatever form they want to at any given point in time. And there's also a lot of stuff that's I think born out of that specific ability due to their relationship with their parents. And we see in many incarnations that one version of Jordan is certainly the complete opposite than the other version, because we see that the masculine version formulates a romantic relationship with Marie. Like they have a whole thing going on, but that's not happening with the feminine version. The feminine version has her own sort of ambitions and wants and desires. And what's also interesting about Jordan is that they were very ingratiated and ingrained in the culture of Godolkin. They worked as a assistant essentially to Brink, worked on Brink's behalf, and kind of knew about a lot of this information, knew about what was happening with Luke and what was going down with him before he committed suicide, and just the path that he was on. And so very much a powerful character, but also somebody who has a lot of information and comes in and kind of really just throws off, I think, the entire dynamic of this whole group because they don't really know what they're going to get depending on the version of Jordan that they see. And Jordan
Mhm.
also has to kind of go on that personal journey of figuring out their place in this whole scheme, their relationship to their parents, and ultimately like what it's going to mean for partnering up with Marie and what it means for the relationship with Godolkin and how they, sort of navigate that space. So what were your thoughts, abilities, just the whole dynamic and the character arc of what Jordan underwent this season?
Man, what a cool, I think, just way to talk about or have any ideas about what it could be like in some ways to be non-binary or uh uh maybe not even non-binary, but she uses the term what did she say? She was like bi-gendered in a superhero world, because it's so interesting how I feel like they take something that the world deems as what should be I don't know, even like a defect or somebody who should be looked over, and they turn it kind of to a superpower. I think it's a really cool concept and idea that they have here with Jordan, man. And Jordan does a good job of using both sides of themselves, I think, to be honest, to get places where they need to go. And there is some really cool commentary there about their dad not being able to, I guess, grasp that they can turn into both. He's like, you were my little boy, this and that. Jordan is like, I'm both. Like, you need to accept both parts of me. And I really like, again, a lot of the things they're doing there with that. But not only that, but that both forms definitely have their powers. And yeah, again, I think it's really cool and a really, really dope idea that they have here with Jordan, man. But the relationship between Jordan and Marie is also interesting, because there's that moment where, what's Translucent Son's name? Maverick is talking to Marie, and or maybe no, Maverick was talking to Jordan, I think, actually, at this point in time, discussing how Jordan just felt like Marie only wanted the masculine part of them. And I was
Yeah.
and Maverick was like, "Do you know that?" I was like, "Damn, that's a good question." Because they never sought to talk about any of that or to hash any of that out. And so when you're saying the masculine form and the feminine form definitely have, they got different things going on and different things that they want to do, apart from each other. It's just so interesting that, I don't know, in that relationship there's more to it that they haven't talked about and they haven't discussed. So I think that will continue to be an interesting subject down the line, man. But what a cool character. I love how integrated they are too, just within, like you said, they know everything that was going on with Luke, and everything, happening in the office. That's where they work. Not only that, but what the thing that they haven't really talked about Jordan recently is Jordan was like killing it in the rankings, right? Jordan was like 8 at some point or something like that. So it's just so interesting that, I don't know, it feels like, although we're watching the show, Jordan is not getting the respect that they deserve because they are bi gender. You know what I'm saying? Jordan is crazy powerful. We even see that moment where Sam walks by, after the Shetty stuff kind of goes down. He's like, "You can take me, but can you take him?" And I was like, yeah, Jordan probably could take a lot of the people in here. Jordan is definitely one of the most powerful soups in this hole. So it's just really interesting to see how, I think, people, for lack of a better term, misgender and disassociate Jordan with some of the power that they possess, just because they can be one thing or another. They can be all over the place. So I think, again, what an amazing concept of a character to kind of take something like an identity and turn it into a superpower. I think it's really cool. And I think who else to do it but a show called Gen V?
Yeah, it's saying a ton of stuff about what that experience could look like and what it could mean for people, and the fact that it is a power to use as an advantage, to really make sure that Jordan as a character is really being represented in all of their forms, in the both masculine
Mm-hmm.
and the feminine form, because both sides are equal and both sides are important. Because I did feel like I was thinking, like, earlier in the season we were like heavily focusing on the feminine side, but then I
Yeah.
noticed a switch like midway through the season, like a lot more of the masculine side was becoming more prominent and present. And I was really happy to see that, because I was just like, there needs to be equal parts of a relationship with both if we want to care about both. You know, we kind of need to see both of them in action. We need to see
Mm-hmm.
how they navigate and relate to other people when they decide to switch between the masculine or the feminine version. And so or the form, I should say. And so all of that stuff I think was done really well. And just like their relationship to Brink, and the fact that like there was involvement there within Luke's, you know, sort of death, and just the fact that like Jordan helped rescue Brink, you know, from Luke, you know, potentially lashing out on Brink. You know, that's really what established their sort of ascendance in Godolkin. The fact that Jordan had the opportunity to become a teaching assistant and be so closely associated with Brink, and be able to rise in the rankings gradually but surely. You know, that also just puts, you know, I think a little bit more responsibility on people who might not necessarily believe in the idea or the system itself. Obviously, again, because Godolkin has some really terrible stuff going on underneath the surface, but because of their own personal experience, they're looking to fulfill their own ambitions and their own, you know, personal things that they want to achieve. Like people at that age in college, like you have a lot of stuff that you want to do and accomplish, and to do so, you need to connect with people, you need to network, you need to establish relationships with certain people who might be higher up in the institution. You know, all that stuff is very, very true. And so I think Jordan kind of represented that particular facet of what it's like to be in college and what it's like to sort of navigate your way through multiple spaces, and having the opportunity sort of presented to you because you have decided to make those connections and build those relationships. And then, you know, beyond that, all the stuff that happens with Marie, that is a really, really interesting dynamic too. Just the relationship and the romance between the masculine version of Marie and what that's, you know, sort of blossomed into and what that means. And I think you can kind of tell Marie, you know, has moments where, you know, she doesn't necessarily know, like, can I trust this version of Jordan? Like, I think that was like a line she asked herself, like, can I trust you, or can I trust, you know, all that stuff comes to play. And
Mm-hmm.
people have to constantly ask themselves that. But I think that's a good thing because, as you said, you got to take all versions. You got to know that Jordan is like not just this one thing or this one person.
Exactly.
Like it's these multiple identities that come to play. So really, really great stuff with that particular character. As we keep moving on, we should talk about Emma, who's also like known as Little Cricket, has an actual superhero alias. Another wild power here. Emma can basically, you know, do sort of size alteration, very similar to what we see with Ant-Man or even in this own universe, Termite. But the specific way that she's able to achieve her alteration is by a pretty crazy means. She has to, in order to grow smaller, she has to purge herself, essentially, you know, sort of force herself to throw up food and vomit food or liquids that she's had. But in order to grow and become bigger, she has to eat a ton. And so we're seeing sort of the opposite sides of that dynamic come to play. And they play with this specific power and ability all throughout the season in so many different ways, in both tragic ways, funny ways,
Yeah.
shocking ways. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
all on the table, and we see her in so many different situations. And it's
So
like,
many.
I feel like every scene where Emma pops up is like, how the fuck did you end up like this? Like, why are you 15 feet high sitting in this hot tub just in this way, looking like a damn giant in the midst of in a small pool? So what did you think about just Emma, you know, sort of her role in this larger ensemble, but then also just the ability and what it speaks to from I guess a social context, the fact that she has to really do some terrible stuff to her body on a consistent basis in order to achieve these really fantastical abilities, and I guess, you know, sort of make her place as a soup amongst this group of people.
Man, when I seen her, I knew they were killing the commentary in this show. I just knew like, nah, they are actually going crazy because not only is a black woman with powers, with blood powers, you have a bi-gendered Asian girl that, you know what I'm saying? And then you telling me, sure, she's just a white girl, but she has like body dysmorphia, but it ties to her powers. I was like, yeah, no, they're on a different level of the things they're trying to say with this TV show, man. And Emma is such an interesting character because it's not only speaking to body dysmorphia, and image is speaking to people pleasing. A lot of times the reason she even gets little in the first place is to please other people. Most often what we know from the TV show is her mom, but in this case it was like a guy to have sex or at a party, or she's always getting big or little for somebody else. And it's like, damn, Emma. Like every time something happens, I'm like, damn, Emma, because she really is also a character that's just fucked up and is going through it. And there's a really difficult moment for her character arc in the show very early on when we see her get little, or when Marie sees her get little for the first time, or the girl, the social media girl, I don't even remember her
Justine.
name,
Yeah,
Justine.
Yeah.
There's even a moment that's fucked up where she was like, oh, do you want therapy for that? Or do you don't feel like you need to go to therapy? Making it feel like it is body dysmorphia, right? What is it? When you put your hand down your throat and you have to throw up, that sickness, but it's tied to her powers. Or so we thought, again, by the end, we're like, wait a second, she can get little without having to throw up on anything, which is holy shit. What a realization for everybody. I thought that was a really cool moment. But in that moment, she said something too, though, that's like, well, it's part of my power. How else am I supposed to get small? You know what I mean? Kind of type thing. And that's a very good point also to make, where like you tell a bunch of people that you have to throw up to get small. Everybody's like, damn, that's really sad. Are you okay? And part she's like, shit, how else am I supposed to do this thing? You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a really interesting choral there, I think, in her character, by the ways in which, you know, she operates, in which her character works. I think that's really cool and crazy stuff there. But man, everything they're doing with Emma, I think, is really great. I really do. I think they're saying a lot. What she's going through with Sam is a lot. It kind of is falling apart in real time here, and it's just it's really good stuff, man. But I really like her character because I think she is also just in the middle of a ton of bullshit, bro. But again, having understood the ways in which her power works, in having to give up, it always feels like she always gives up a piece of herself every time, right? She has that line where it's like, every time I get smaller and smaller. I was like, God damn. You know what I'm saying? It's very depressive stuff, but wow, what a amazing character study, man. Again, I really like, you could take each one of these characters and you could write a paper on each character and have something meaningful. And I think Emma is no exception to that.
Man, I think you know, a lot of these powers we see are tied to very tragic circumstances. I think it's just, you know, that commentary that the boys universe, this whole, you know, sort of experiment is speaking to the idea that having powers isn't as glamorous as you might think. You know, some people have really glamorous powers if you're, you know, one of the few, like a Homelander, because like, what is he really sacrificing physically or mentally to have the powers that he has? But Emma here, you can see that she is hurting herself every single time to achieve this specific ability to people please. And she also has these massive trust issues because who can she trust? You know, the early in the season with Justine, that shit was real crazy. You know, have a person, you know, sort of disclose the way that she's able to achieve that power to the public. You know, that was a really wild sort of story that they tackled, that this information was volunteered without her consent. You know, she didn't want people to know that about her, you know, or if eventually she did, she wanted to tell it on her own terms. And then you also have her mom trying to get her to do a reality show, once again trying to leverage her power and her image and all of this stuff for her own personal gain, which again sort of speaks to what we see in this universe at large with Vaught and other powers and people at play, and all of that stuff, until she finally meets Sam, who's also non-trusting of other people because he's been in a very tragic and terrible circumstance, and his brother and his mind wiping and all the stuff that he's trying to recollect about himself. They now find each other. You know, they find each other in a really vulnerable moment. They're able to have this relationship, but it does come to, you know, an unfortunate sort of, I guess, end, you know, by the end of the season, because they do fall on opposite
Yeah.
sides. But just all of the image stuff that they talked to all throughout the season was really well done stuff, tying it to her ability. And you also get, I mean, another fucking crazy moment where she does meet the guy and they hit it off romantically. And finally, he makes the ask of her, like, yeah, can you get little for me? She has to go do it. And that's the first time that we see her put her finger down her throat to achieve the little size. And she gets on his dick and he asks her, like, oh, is this the biggest dick you've ever seen? And she's like, well, relatively speaking. I'm like 2 centimeters tall right now. That was the funniest shit ever. It's like, yo, what are they doing here?
Guess.
And she's like sliding up and down his shaft. I'm like, come
People pleasing,
on,
man.
like,
People pleasing, because
it's
what the hell?
it's really wild that she put herself through that, but it is that
Mhm.
sense of her to want to make people happy, to want people to accept her and welcome her, and it's tied to that identity and that body
Mhm.
dysmorphia that she's dealing with. And so I am glad to see that ultimately, you know, as she grew throughout the season, we started to see her forge her own path, and also, you know, start to realize that maybe you don't have to put yourself through that really painful circumstance to achieve the
Mm.
power. Now crying or being happy, I mean, being happy is like great, because if being happy makes you like large, then wonderful. You know, you should do that all the time. Being sad, you know, shrinking, you know, you don't want to be sad, you don't want to cry, but I think that that's a probably a better way to achieve that ability
Mhm.
than physically harming yourself
For
by
sure.
vomiting up, you know, all the stuff that you've ingested. And so I'll be very curious to see where she goes in the future in the next season. Let's talk about Sam also, who is the brother of Luke. Sam is really kind of our device and our way into the woods, which became really the big prominent storyline of the season. We ultimately find out that the woods is constructed really as well. The woods is primarily the actual purpose for Godolkin. Godolkin University is just a front. Like, that's just bullshit. It's just a cover up for what they're doing in the woods. The woods, there's all sort of experimenting happening. There's all sorts of stuff happening underneath the surface because Dean Shetty is trying to basically create a virus that will kill all soups. And, we'll talk about her in a second and the reasons why. But Sam is really kind of the primary character that we see undergo these experiments, undergo this subjugation, and eventually break out. But because he's been down there for so long and he's trying to recollect, who he is and his existence and all this stuff and understand that there are other soups out there, he's just like he's like a baby, really. His development, it's stunted growth in a lot of respects. And Emma actually kind of takes on the responsibility of getting him to a place where he can be comfortable and he can be a part of society, but they still have to be super careful because he's not used to interacting with people. He's not used to going to parties and drinking and having friends. Like, he hasn't had any social experiences. And so we see him dealing with that. We see him dealing with the tragedy of losing Luke. We also see him sort of, I guess, manifesting his pain in really strange ways. When he lashes out and kills people, people turn into puppets. It's crazy stuff that they're doing with his character. So what did you think about Sam and his role here? Again, sort of being that primary narrative force of the Wood storyline, and then eventually, sort of establishing that relationship with Emma to where he eventually ended up at the end, sort of taking the side of soup should dominate and really kind of control everything that's happening here.
Yeah, it really is. Sam really is a product of all of this, of what it looks like to be experimented on, by Vault and what's happening in the woods, man. It's kind of scary and when you think about it, but it also, again, just makes so much sense. Sam really is the kind of the death child of Vault, right? It's like you experimented on me for this long and think, well, nobody gonna figure out. Now it's time to blow shit up. He is the definition of what revolution looks like when you go too far, man. And so seeing him is so crazy. Again, he was tied, the brother, the number one superhero in the school. But once you see Sam's abilities, for me, I would start to think like, damn, if he was a normal person, he might be number one. He's punching holes in people's faces, and who can stop Sam? Again, in that moment where everything goes down Shetty, and him and Kate are about to go to the woods, Jordan is like, you can stop me, or Kate is like, you can stop me, but can't stop him. Ain't nobody stopping Sam right now in this moment. This dude is kind of insane. Again, except Marie, who low-key is the real main person here. For being honest, Marie is, again, to me, the strongest. But Sam is crazy, man. He really is, and not only crazy because, again, everything that he can do, but they have created this broken child. Every time he kills people, they turn into puppets. That is so, like, where did that come from? And again, of course, it reminds me of Black Noir, how he sees like these cartoon characters come around. Shout out to the boys and this whole team for being able to just come up with different ways to show things, man. But it's so funny that this dude starts to see these puppets and just be punching holes in the puppets' faces, like, oh, that's all they are. But it's also very reminiscent of exactly what they are. The people he's punching are puppets, literal puppets of Vault to some degree. You know what I'm saying? And so it's really crazy stuff, man. But he is, as much as I said everybody else is fucked up, he is probably quite literally the most fucked up. Everybody else is kind of fucked up in their trauma and the things that they've done. He is the same way, but he has been locked up, experimented on. They helped create a virus from his blood, probably. There's just, his brother has exploded. He just got out of school. He is experiencing a lot of stuff for the first time. He is just really, really, really fucked up. And it's really interesting to see how his character manifests by the end. By the end of it, when the Civil War breaks out, I can't be surprised. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like, whoop, didn't see that coming. Nope, you're just sitting there like, yeah. Of course you were rebelling the way in which you're rebelling, the way Kate is leading this thing, man. And so, man, what a crazy character. Again, how he's really is lost in the sauce. And there's really, again, post Luke's death, who else is going to get him out of it? He still doesn't follow what Emma is trying to guide for him. All he can do is go with whatever the rebellion is, whatever he's like a fish out of water in some ways when he starts to hang out with other college students, because he's very impressionable, which is exactly what Emma didn't want to happen. And that's exactly what ends up happening when Kate leaves the rebellion. He's like, well, yeah, I'm a superhero. All supers are beneath me. And that's exactly where everything ends up.
Yeah, I think this is the prime example of what happens and how you create a Homelander when you have somebody who has no social experiences, has no sense of reality, and has no interaction with real people or human beings, and they grow up being tested and experimented on for their entire lives. Then that's how you get these sociopathic, damn near psychotic fucking soups with these crazy, tremendous powers who just want to subjugate and dominate others, because that's what's been thrust upon them for their entire lives. They're just going to repeat a very, very vicious cycle and do so in an even more alarming way, because their powers supersede anything that the government can achieve. They can supersede any tools or equipment. Like, they can do things that most human beings cannot do. Literally only soups in this universe can do that. And so he's a scary prospect. And then for a time, you kind of see that tender side of him, that real naive side of him, when Emma, sort of gets him in her grasp, and she's trying to, sort of help him out and show him the way. And then you kind of, have some hope for him that he can change and grow into a self-sustaining person. And maybe having friends is a good idea, but then, too much of a good thing too soon is a little bit too much for him. I think it's too much of a dangerous thing when he can just see how much freedom he has when he goes to party and they're doing the shit in the hallway and they're drinking and he meets girls and all of that stuff. And then eventually he goes to the press conference with Victoria Newman and he gets to hear all these perspectives. And he's like, well, wait, we have powers. Like, we should be in charge. Like, we are better than everybody else. Like, why the fuck should we answer to anybody? And, he hasn't had that proper social upbringing to think about that human beings are still human beings. Like, we're all like human at the end of the day. And so you have a responsibility with this power to not harm people, to not kill people, to do these things. You're supposed to be heroic. That's the reason you're here. But his whole reality has been based in a lie. Nothing that he's been taught has been based in being a hero. It's been based in, there are hierarchical, sort of places and systems in place. I've been at the bottom for so long, and now it's my time to rise to the top. And so to see where he goes from the start of the show to being like this really sympathetic figure, to by the end, he's now heralded as a hero of the school. And they frame, the whole attack on the school on Marie and Jordan and Emma and Andre. And now he's like propped up next to Kate as being the hero, is wild shit. Because the only real reason that he's there is, one, he's a soup, obviously, but two, he's just a white man. And him, along with the white women, are the two people that are seen as heroic, while all the people from the marginalized identities and backgrounds, now you're in fucking prison. You go underneath the goddamn jail, because you clearly have an agenda against what we're trying to achieve here. And so it's a crazy sort of roller coaster you see his character go on, just from where he starts to where he ends. Last but not least, the big character we should focus on is Dean Shetty, who, again, the place that she starts off in compared to where she ends up is totally different. I think, similar to a lot of these characters, you're presented one thing and then all of a sudden they pull the rug out from underneath us and they're like, wait, oh, I didn't know that about that character. And for most of the season, Dean Shetty is kind of presented as a villain, a villainous figure who was doing terrible stuff. She's experimenting on these kids. She has the wood. She's running it. She's trying to come up with this virus to kill soups. She's also responsible for the amnesia that a lot of the students experience, Marie and Andre, where they can't remember past events. And so for much of the season, it's like, yeah, I don't trust her. She feels like a Victoria Newman, like somebody who's just like pulling the strings behind the scenes. And then it turns out, well, actually, she's doing this because Homelander is responsible for the death of her fucking family, all the way back from an event in season 1. Again, another super shocking event that just really altered the course of this entire show. Homelander and Maeve, by association, allowing that plane to crash and not saving anybody from that plane crash. Well, turns out Dean Shetty had family on board at that on that aircraft, and she knows that Homelander is very much responsible. She wants to hold him responsible, but not only that, she wants to take it a step further and eliminate soups from existence entirely. Not all that different than what we see with Butcher out of The Boys and him leading that contingent. And so I think becomes a very sympathetic figure, but ultimately loses her life at the hands of Kate by the end of this show,
Mm-hmm.
because Kate, knows what the motive is, but she's very much pissed that she's been running the woods and sort of been responsible for this amnesia. So how did you feel just about that shift in Shetty's character, knowing what her motivations truly were, and how they're tied to Homelander, who is really kind of the biggest villain of this entire show and this entire story?
Man, this dude Homelander be fucking up everything, man. But it's also crazy how grief, the lengths that grief will lead you to. Because it looks so inhumane and so crazy when you see them start to develop the virus that is supposed to eventually kill Soups. You see the one boy in there just got like boils and sores all over him, man. And she says, okay, it works. How can we make it contagious? What? How can we do what? And she says, can we make it airborne? What? Like, what is going on here? And it's so crazy from Kate's point of view, though, too, right? Where there is the moment they have in the living room, in episode 7, where it's like, wait, where Shetty is telling her, no, like, I love you, like, I really see you as my daughter, I want to lead you. And she's like, wait, you're telling the truth. What? I don't even know how to feel. I didn't even know how to feel in that moment, because you're trying to get rid of all Soups, but you are telling the truth that you love Kate as your daughter. Like, I don't really know how that works. Like, did you plan on killing her too? You know what I'm saying? I think that's where Kate is coming from. It's like, how can this possibly work if you plan on potentially maybe even killing me too? Kate can't literally trust anybody, and that's how she kind of goes on what she the terror that she goes on. But man, Shetty, man, is she becomes such an interesting character, because she is painted as just pure villain. Like, I don't like Soups, let's kill them all. But when you realize that, again, Homelander was responsible for the death of her family, you kind of understand to some degree, right? Again, there are like levels, it feels like, of morality here, like lines that you can always cross. And it feels like Shetty was absolutely crossing the line. But then at the end of all of this, of all these characters and all the things that they have going on, all these resolves, is like, can you blame them? And a lot of times it's like, no, like part of you is like, no, I can't necessarily blame you. And I see how you got to where you're going. So, and I think Shetty is a no exception. Like you said, at the end of that, you're like, dang, she's no different from Butcher in that way. You know what I mean? And so, of course, as the morality compass, there's other ways we feel like we can go about it, right? There's other ways you feel like you can be a hero and change these things, but can you blame them? And Shetty, I was like, damn, no, not really. I can't blame you. You're trying to take away the people who took away your family. That's revenge, and that's exactly what it looks like. So, man, what a also, again, everybody is so complicated in the show, man. And I think Shetty, she's also so interesting, being the one who was seemingly not a Soup at all, being able to move the strings in the way she was. Her, and I forgot the name of the doctor that was helping her. I just remember he was Hispanic, but man, just really, really good character stuff here, man.
Man, I think one, Shetty operating on the inside of this whole operation, sort of presenting herself as the Dean of Godolkin, this really prestigious school of crime fighting that's supposed to, inspire and create the next generation of Soups, when it's all really just bullshit. She's inside because she's controlling these things that she's pulling behind the scenes, and it's a really shocking revelation that I honestly did not see coming, because for so much of the season, you do see just all of those incidents and those moments where she's like, yeah, let's just make it contagious, let's make it airborne, and it's like, wow, at what expense are you willing to try to achieve this? And then you find out the why behind it, and you think about Butcher as well, and I think Shetty goes on a similar journey where it's like that revenge and that grief does consume them to a point to where it's like, this has consumed you so much, like you're willing to sacrifice literal lives to achieve your objective, innocent lives at that, because a lot of these people involved in this are innocent. They haven't done anything. Yeah. She's doing this as a preventative measure, because her outlook and her perspective on Soups is that you all are just capable of the worst shit. You shouldn't exist. Like, this world, look at what happens when you all have the power that you have. And truthfully, she is right in that particular instance. Like, the Soups in this universe, they are responsible for so much death and destruction and so much terrible shit. Like, how many times on our hand can we count that there have been these really admirable actions on the part of Soups doing things that are really, really admirable. Like, it happens occasionally, but for the most part, it's really corrupt, terrible shit. And I think that she
Mhm.
has a point in that. But again, what are you willing to do and who are you willing to sacrifice? And she clearly was willing to throw anybody under the bus and sacrifice any life that it took to achieve that revenge that she wants against Homelander, which is a really, really dark place to be. And I don't think you can justify it, but it also does, again, make her cause at least a little bit more understandable from her perspective of why she was doing what she was doing. The fact that they went to the lengths to create a university, an entire university as a front, is the most wild shit to me. Like, that is just like the most illegal underworld criminal operation shit ever. Like, how did they even pull that off? Like, to still have the
Yeah.
woods operating as this full-fledged experiment while this university is operating as a real school is just like crazy shit. It's a really big idea, but I think that the way that they sort of connected it to her story was just really, really fascinating stuff. So love the arc there. It's a shame she died. I don't think she had to die. I think that the shit she was doing was wrong, but for her to die in the way that she did, that's one thing that I'm like, damn, man, I don't think she had to go in that way. But of course, you reap what
Mhm.
you sow in this world. When you cross people and when you reveal like who you truly are, and it goes against and it conflicts with what other people think, like, you lose your life in this world. Like, that's the true stakes of the boys universe. As we wrap up the conversation here, these last two episodes made very, very explicit connections to what we're going to see, I think, in season 4 of the boys. Homelander shows up in the season finale, which we'll get to in a second. But before that, they kind of tease him out earlier in the season. We specifically in episode 7 see the presence of Victoria Newman, who we know is operating as this congresswoman by day, and that's her public front, but she's a soup underneath behind the scenes. And so one thing that she noted, though, because I do want to talk about her connections with Marie, but one thing she noted is the Homelander trial. She thinks that Homelander should stand trial for what he did at the end of season 3. We know that season 3 ended on, a really, really crazy sequence where he killed a public protester who mocked his son. He killed him publicly in front of cameras, in front of the public, and everybody's seeing this now. That was a very public incident. And so I think that going into season 4, that's going to be a huge storyline that they pick up. Does Homelander stand trial? Will he face repercussions? Obviously, there's a contingent that support
Mhm.
what he did. There's a supremacist aspect that Soup should be on top of everybody. They should rule the world, essentially. We
Mhm.
saw that in season 3 of The Boys, and that bled over into this show as well, because we start to see the college age Soups who attend Godolkin. Many of them believe in that, including Sam, including Kate. So how do you think all of that will start to tie into, potentially what Homelander might face in terms of consequences or lack thereof when it comes time for season 4 of The Boys?
Man, it's so crazy, man, because it's hard to tell in what direction any kind of law or a judge or anything is going to lean in the case of Homelander. This is like the scariest dude in the world. I just have a hard time believing anybody's going to bang a gavel and say guilty against Homelander. But I think it all makes a really good story on the supremacy side of things, of seeing where this whole thing bubbles from in terms of what it looks like to have again, superhero supremacy, because that's like the scary part of all of this, is how do we hold these people accountable. And again, we'll talk about it in a second, with the Victoria Newman stuff, but I think she literally has the tool now to say, no, I will kill your ass, you better calm down of what's going on. But man, it's scary stuff, man. I think Homelander is literally like the embodiment of what we go through in a country in real life. That's what he has been for a long time, right? What if some of the worst politicians that we have in real life were superheroes? And that's what he is. And some of those people in real life have not had repercussions yet. I wonder if Homelander, who does have superpowers, will face repercussions. Again, in the back of my mind, probably not. And so I'm excited to see what that looks like early next season, of how potentially, again, that supremacy is threatened when it comes to Homelander and his followers. I think that's going to be a really, really, really big thing, man. And it really is going to be almost the civil war that we see in this last episode. I feel like we're going to see it on a larger scale when it comes to the actual The Boys. There are going to be Soups like, whoa, what the fuck is going on here? And there also are going to be Soups kind of similar to Sam, who walk in the door and go, you know what, we should be superior. We should be better than them and fall on that side of Homelander. So I think that all of that for sure, all of those ideas will definitely bleed into the beginning of The Boys season 4.
Yeah, one of the great things that they always try to, sort of bring back to the surface in The Boys is that those political implications, those political consequences of what this means to, like, Victoria, kind of being a part of, like, the political sphere. That very much leans into that idea. But if they do lean into a trial and what does superhero legislation look like? Ding ding, Marvel, Civil War, like, that's a whole thing that
Right.
is just so much untapped potential in what they can do in season 4 of The Boys. And if you I won't get into it, but if you've, like, read ahead about The Boys and the comics and what this could ultimately mean and the position that Homelander eventually assumes and takes as he progresses throughout the comic book storyline, I mean, it goes to the highest levels. That's really what it's going to come down to. I mean, the highest levels in this country. It's going to affect all of that stuff from a political standpoint. And to your point, him facing repercussions, very unlikely. Like, the guy shows up in this show still walking around free. So how much has already happened in the way of holding him responsible for killing somebody? And it's like, oh, well, he had a reason to, or whatever the case may be. They'll come up with some shit. And we know he's killed many people before and he's been able to cover it up. He has the massive power of Vault behind him, who's always going to protect him. He has, Ashley, who also showed up in this episode. I got to say, Ashley is, like, the best character.
Bro, she is. She really is the best character.
She
bro.
is so Ashley is going to find a way to cover her fucking ass. I don't CYA everybody in this bitch. Like, it don't matter. Ashley's gonna be on top of it. She's not gonna be held responsible for none of this shit. And that dynamic between her and Homelander, we saw a lot of that in season 3, where a lot of the power that he exerted amongst her, she just passed that down the chain. She doesn't have power. She's not a suit, but she can physically be intimidating. She can mentally be intimidating. And so I think she's going to play a big role into that too. But I'm super excited. And, Homelander, and obviously he's, like, the biggest villain in all of media right now to me. Like, I don't know if I literally actually fear a character more in any medium than Homelander. Just like when he popped up at the end of this episode, I was like, holy fucking shit. It's about to be really bad. And we should talk about that moment where he pops up and we see him, say very few short words to Marie, like, you're willing to do this to your own kind. And he blasts her away with his laser vision, but she survives. She's okay.
Crazy.
She's good. That's the real stark revelation, because I definitely thought she was dead. How did you feel about that moment, seeing him pop up unexpectedly, because they did not tease that out by any means, to then seeing that she was able to withstand, all the might and all the power of Homelander?
Yeah, man. I love it. They're on opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to the hierarchy in America. In real life, you know what I'm saying? Literally a white man at the top and a black woman at the bottom. And I think in that moment, I don't think he probably didn't know too much about Marie, probably knew a little bit, but I feel like even in that moment, he felt like he had an opportunity to hurt her. And I think they found out that he couldn't hurt her. He couldn't kill her in that moment. I think that, to me, I don't know, it made me excited. I was like, oh shit, is Marie, like, can she be a main character in The Boys now? Like, I need her to turn the fuck up. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is our hero. I need her. But I really like seeing that moment, man. I even like the moment where Ashley calls her and was like, we will make you a member of the 7. We just need you to kill some people. She was like, what? What the hell is going on?
Like, I just got here. How the fuck can I just graduate and become a member of the 7 already?
Like, what are you saying to me right now, man? Even that whole meeting was hilarious. They were like, okay, we need somebody to be a member of the 7. How about Maverick? I hope he's not a perv like his dad. This dude be carrying around a llama.
Yeah, that llama shit is so strange, bro.
Lord knows what Maverick be doing with that damn llama, bro. That shit is crazy to me. But like, no, he's just like his dad. If anything, it's scary shit, man. But yeah, I think that was like, I think that moment between her and Homelander was like a snippet of what we'll see for real. Like, I think that's what they're trying to get at, is these opposite spectrums of all of this. She legit, again, from what we know her to be, really just wants to be a hero. That's what she just told us. Like, she doesn't even need to be part of the 7. They made her say that for a reason. You know what I'm saying? They made her say, I don't have to be part of 7. I just want to be a hero. Like, and I love how they're framing that. Because now, again, to me, I know The Boys, we have Huey, we got Butcher, we got MM, we got all this up. Now, part of me is like, is Marie about to be, slid in as one of the most important characters in this whole? Because the fact that she lived told a lot to me. I was like, oh yeah, no, we might be onto something here. So I'm very excited to see where she goes, but I'm also really excited again to see where that whole dynamic goes between the two men. I also got to bring up PJ Byrne as Adam.
Oh my god. Oh my
Who-
god. PJ Byrne is amazing. He's unbelievable. Every time, everything I see him in, he is unbelievable.
He's great. He just gets it. He just gets it, bro. He's so like silly, but also he pretends he be like aloof at moments, but not aloof. He's also like a little bitch, low key. Like he runs into Ashley, like Ashley, help me. Oh man, the idea to make him like the acting teacher, 10 out of 10, bro. There was a moment they're like, nope, just me. Like when they're clapping at the end, he's like, nope, I love it, man. Because he also directed one of the 7 movies, right?
Yeah.
He's like directed
Dawn of the Seven. Yeah, he
Dawn of the
directed that.
Seven.
Can I also just say
PJ Byrne would also be killing it.
Can I just say, how about PJ Byrne in Babylon? If people haven't seen Babylon yet,
oh my god,
the shit. He's also like another like. He's not a director in that movie, but he's making a movie, and there is a sequence in Babylon where oh my god, he's on another level entirely. He just goes completely forward. I mean, literally every time he shows up, he makes me laugh my ass off. So yeah, no, that's a really good call out.
No, yeah, this dude he's doing something else. But yeah, that was like a snippet of the showdown. And to be honest, when Homelander first landed, there was a moment I just knew he was about to say something racist. But he like kind of does for a second though, right? He lands, he goes, "Are you a monster?" I said, "Huh?" Or something. I was like, whoa, what are you saying to her right now? And we know Homelander's racist shit, you know what I'm saying? So it's like I think everything they're doing again in that moment, there was like a 30 seconds of what could turn into something in the future. Way to set that up, man. They're killing it.
Yeah, just a brilliant way to bring him in and utilize him. I truly did not expect him to show up. He's such a huge presence in this world when he's not there. You always feel the presence of Homelander, even in The Boys. Like when he's not in a scene, like the guy is top of mind all the time, you know. And I think that's like the makings of like the best villains, you know, one of the best villains that we've seen in TV history recently, and to feel his presence all season, and then just to have the reserve to hold him back until this final moment, a very crucial moment that will likely absolutely play out in the next season of The Boys. Just a great decision. While Homelander exerts his power physically, Victoria Newman exerts her power behind the scenes and mentally, and she's also establishing herself as a very dangerous and scary character as well. She comes into episode 7. We basically find out that her and Marie have a connection with each other. They have the exact same powers, which was another quite shocking reveal. I don't know how I didn't think about that. Literally,
me either.
At all the entire season, like it went above my head, and then when she popped, I was like, "Oh my god, that makes so much sense." Yeah. But they have the same exact powers. Very similar upbringings, you know, didn't have their parents around. And so Victoria Newman has been obviously keeping it quiet from the public at large. And they have this moment where Marie reveals the nature of the woods to Victoria and reveals what's happening. And Victoria, she basically takes that information and is like, you know what? Let me handle it. You should pursue a different life. You know, you are a black woman. You could potentially be the first black woman in the 7. You could have a ton of cultural influence. Go down that path. Don't try to uncover this big mystery. Like you should actually tap into what makes you special. And we know Marie's not going to do that. That's just not in her nature. But then Victoria takes that information about the woods. She's able to find the scientist and retrieve the virus from him and kills him, essentially creating a situation to where she's the only person knowledgeable that virus can spread, can be contagious, can ultimately kill all the soups on the planet. So she does have that Joker card that nobody else has, that Vought doesn't have, that Homelander doesn't have. So I mean, from a power play perspective, she's probably at the top of the food chain now. So what were your thoughts about her connections to Marie, what she told her, and to eventually, you know, sort of establishing that new leverage that she now has with this virus that, you know, she could really use it at her will at any given point in time?
Man, what a cool connection, man, between Victoria and Marie. Again, like you said, I don't know why I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but here we are. I was like, oh shit. She sliced her hand. I was like, I was looking at it like I seen it for the first time. I was like, oh, what's going on here? Victoria Newman is a really cool character because I have no idea what she wants. I'm gonna be like, I don't know if she wants to be president. I don't know sometimes I don't know if she works against Vought or for Vought. Sometimes I have no idea where she lands. You know, sometimes that's a bad thing. No, not her. She really is the wild card. She is the character in the wind, and that makes her almost just as scary a lot of times, right? She's not that front facing like Homelander scary. She probably has the potential to kill Homelander scary. Why haven't you done it yet? Kind of scary. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what she's gunning for. And that is, oh man, she's using her politics and her brain to move in ways that we just haven't seen. You know what I'm She almost feels in some ways, maybe not. I like her way more, but the ways in which she moves kind of feels like Littlefinger in some ways. You know what I'm saying? Littlefinger, he was very conniving. He had a lot of stuff up his sleeve, and that's how Victoria Newman feels to me. It's like, damn, what are you trying to do here? But she does it in a way that makes her feel cool, though. Like, I never look at Victoria Newman as a villain, nor do I look at her as like somebody who's whack. It's like, no, she's just like this cool ass chick in the wind that I don't know what she has going on. So she's really dope to me, man. In this moment where she gets the virus in her hand, man, I don't know where it's going, because all the Supes hate her, not knowing she is the one. Why not tell everybody you're a Supe? Because then wouldn't that make her point of view important? Wouldn't more people who are Supes listen to her? With her, everyone keeps saying she's anti-Supe, right? But she's not. She's just anti like Supe death. She's almost like Sokovia Accord, pro Sokovia Accord. You know what I'm saying? They just need to be in check, kind of type of thing. So man, I really, her character is hard to pinpoint for me, but I think she's really fucking dope. And I don't know where she's going, but everything she said to Marie is also kind of real shit. Where like, of course, Marie's not going to do it, but a black woman on the 7 could probably make a lot of fucking change. You know what I'm saying?
She had a point.
She had a fucking point. I was like, oh man, she would be able to serve as a different kind of idol. You know what I'm saying? To kids, she would serve as being able to touch. She could probably, if she's on the 7, she could probably ask for money to go help some black community somewhere. You know what I'm saying?
Unlike A-Train's ass, who is completely, failing at that respect, because his brother, he tried to be that person for his brother, and we saw that was disingenuous. But we know Marie has that type of heart.
We know Marie has that type of heart, because that's what she's given us, and that's the protagonist they have painted her as. Yes, Marie could be a figure within the 7. Of course, it's a system. They'll probably stop some shit she's trying to do, but she would still be able to get some stuff done. It's almost like, in some ways, it's almost like when Barack Obama became president, right? Whereas everyone's like, oh, he's black, he can only do so much, but he's doing something. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, man, it's so interesting, man. It's so convoluted, and it's so like, it's an interesting way to think about things. Again, like you said, Marie, we know she's not going to do that, but Victoria Newman had a lot of good points, and it's because she is a politician. Oh, last thing I'll say, when Marie told Victoria Newman about that, she was like not surprised about any of it. It was like, unmoved. She acted so fast. You know what I'm saying? She was unmoved. It was like, okay, I'll handle it. That's it. Like, there was no shock. There was no blink. There was no question. She was like, don't worry about it. Go be important. Go be a part of the 7. So, man, the Victoria Newman, again, she's really cool to me. I don't know where she exists. I know she's exploding heads. I get that. That's bad. But like, she's really cool to me, man.
To speak to the Marie being on the 7 part, imagine Ashley getting her hands on Marie. She would have a fucking field day. She'd be like, oh, we got a black woman on the 7 now. Oh my God.
It looks so good.
The sponsorships, the optics, the opportunities. I mean, she would have a goddamn field day with Marie being on the 7. We know she would leverage literally every identity possible to make sure that they would profit from her being a part of that. But this sequence was one of my favorite of the season, to see their connection, to see how closely similar that they both are. But again, to that point about Victoria Newman just not knowing where she falls in this whole grand conflict amongst everybody, it is one of their biggest tricks that they've still yet to really discard to us as an audience. But I think it's one of their biggest strengths as well, because Victoria Newman can fall anywhere. She can do pretty much anything, and we see that she's always 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of everybody else. And so the fact that she did not react to that information about the woods, I mean, it would kind of signal that she has to kind of know about something going on, right? Like maybe she didn't truly understand the nature of what was happening, but she
Mhm.
probably had some idea that there was a cover up happening, that Godolkin
Right.
was a bunch of bullshit. Maybe that's what the extent of it was. And then the virus is really the key piece of information that she was like, oh, I have to use this. I have to figure out a way to get access to this because nobody else can know about it. This is like the most pivotal information possible to have. But man, they can go so many places with her. I love the character because you don't really know how to feel about her. She feels villainous. She feels really, really bad
Mhm.
because popping heads on a consistent basis, like killing the scientists to get the virus, is like, yo, what the fuck are
Yeah.
you doing? Killing all the
Mhm.
people at that trial from season 2 is like, yo, this crazy. But at the same time, you know that something's going on here. Like, is she the
Yeah.
biggest bad, or is Homelander still the biggest bad? And maybe Victoria is possibly one of the only people that can do something about it. I don't know.
Mhm.
There's a lot to explore there. It's really, really interesting. The final piece that we should talk about, because they pulled out all the big guns for this finale. Butcher
They
shows
did.
up in a mid-credit scene. He's able to discover the woods. We see him infiltrate the woods and find the plays. We know now that a lot of these kids, a lot of the main characters, Marie and Andre and Emma, like they are locked away, presumably in the woods now, after being framed for all of the attacks happening on the campus of Vought. But in that very next mid-credit scene, we see Butcher able to infiltrate and find the location of it. I would only suspect that it has to come from, it has to come from the information that was shared to Grace Mallory in the prior
Mhm.
episode when Dean Shetty meets up with Grace Mallory, another cameo
Mhm.
coming in from the boys. She tells her what's going on. I would suspect that Grace made a call to Butcher, even though that they have not been on the greatest, relationship lately, because Butcher took a very, very dark turn in season 3. But now Butcher's coming in, and now I think he knows the whereabouts of the woods. How's that going to tie into his relationship with the rest of the boys team? How's that going to play a role in next season? And what are your thoughts about, again, Butcher kind of being of a similar mindset to Dean Shetty, being that guy who's like, soups need to die. They should be eradicated for all time and forever. But
Mhm.
now we don't really know what to make of him because he still has that darkness in his soul, but he obviously has had to, I think, cede some of his power over to others like Huey, and
Mhm.
Starlight and the boys to gain their trust back after everything that happened in season 3.
Man, this dude comes in here and is just like, what a bunch of cunts. I think it's so funny.
The
Because
funniest
that's
fucking
like
line ever.
that's the funniest line. That's like the only thing he says as he's looking around, man. I'm glad to know that because you remember he left off and he's like he's sick, but he's having to inject Temp V into his blood. So now we can do, he got a little things that he can do now too. But man, I'm glad to see it hasn't changed his personality. But this dude here is I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen or where this goes, man. I don't know if he's you know looking to trace, I guess, the woods and what's happening in the woods. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if he's here to what he's here exactly to do, but what I do know is that all of this will end up pointing to Vault at the end of the day. And that's what Butcher is here to do, is the rid of fucking Vault. And so I'm just curious to see what that meat and potato looks like. What did he see when he walked in? Did he see all the dead prisoners? You know what I'm saying? Kind of locked up. Is there a moment in which he's about to free the kids? Shit, who, you know what I'm saying? You said presumably in the woods. Is he about to free the kids from the cells? That could be it. You know what I'm saying? Are they putting the shows together in this moment? I really don't know. But again, it's just cool to see him, and to see where him and the boys might potentially end up. But he had to give away a little bit of that power, right? What if he does end up leading a small team of the Gen V kids versus Huey and MM and Starlight, having a separate team in the moment, again, the time being, until maybe they see eye to eye, maybe until they do come together, see what that looks like. But like you said, he did have a similar out view that Shetty did. And I think that's going to give the kids pause if he is to meet the kids. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be the kids going to be like, whoa, 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 whoa. We don't know if we want that. At least Marie. We know Marie doesn't want that. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you doing, or why does this look like this? So yeah, I think it'll all be cool, but I think it's cool. It's a brief but effective cameo for sure to end the season.
Yeah, Carl Urban, just fantastic, just absolutely amazing every single time he suits up as Butcher. But man, yeah, I think he remains, still one of the most interesting characters in this entire universe. Him and Homelander, of course, both like being the real true two prominent leads, being the opposing forces in this whole thing. To see him come up here, I love that. I love the connection that they draw, to him knowing about the Wood's existence and how that ultimately might play out. It does paint a picture of, Vought is at the center of another controversy. And so now we have a Homelander potential trial that they have to deal with, but then also the fact that there is this large laboratory of dead soups who've been experimented on. What the fuck is going on here? So them as an organization is probably they're probably going to come under the biggest fire that they've ever experienced. And we know Vault deals with a lot of bullshit all the time. Like they have to constantly find themselves and fight their way out of crises. But this is unlike anything that they've dealt with. And so Butcher has some information to leverage along with Grace. And then Victoria Newman, will she leverage the virus information and reveal that publicly versus Homelander having to deal with what he'll have to deal with? It's gonna be a really, really fascinating season 4, man. It can't get here fast enough. I can't wait until they announce it and we start to figure out when it's gonna come out. But I certainly anticipate that The Boys and Gen V, which we know now will get a season 2, all of this stuff, man. It's really something special, and it feels like it's coalescing into to some more memorable moments across TV that we'll experience over the next few years. So we'll certainly be on the lookout for that. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on season 1 of Gen V. If you've checked out all 8 episodes on Prime Video, definitely hit us up and let us know what you think.